Hey, David T.S. Wood here, and welcome to My Extra Mile. This is a special edition. It's a 6-part series. I know it's not for everyone, so just listen up and find out if this is for you. The world has changed. Everyone's looking to find a way to have a side hustle or a side business that they can stay at home, work from home, and build a global business without taking a cut in pay. So I'm doing this series, I, as a professional network marketer, I'm deeply passionate about this profession. Some of you know, some of you don't. The company I aligned with 16 years ago is a company called Isagenix. Again, please don't let that put you off, because if you're not in Isagenix, but you're still a network marketer, you can learn from these leaders, because they're multiple 6 and 7-figure income earners, so you can still learn. If you don't have a side hustle currently, you're probably going to want to think about it, and maybe listening to this and listening to these leaders about the skills that they have developed that have helped them create these extraordinary incomes is worth listening to. So again, this is a simple 6-part series. The first one, we're going to look at your vision, your why, and your story. 3 skills, and we know that your why has to be bigger than your excuses. So really, building and knowing why you want to do it is so critical in the starting process. Having that vision and understanding how to share your story are all critical skills. This is a 7-figure income earner. She is a legend. She recently trained 50,000 people in the profession of network marketing, and she's brilliant. You'll see her on television, you'll see her in magazines, you'll see her all over the globe with her work. And again, a 7-figure income earner with Isagenix. Please enjoy the incredible Emily Vavra. As you're joining us, I want you to know this is going to be an incredible 6 weeks. I have some incredible leaders that are going to be coming on and sharing with you. I always like to set some agreements in the beginning. The first agreement is just really about being open to a new way of seeing this profession, open to a new way of seeing your life, open to a new way of designing the life that you want for you and your family and your loved ones, open to maybe letting go of old beliefs and embracing new understandings and new beliefs that will really serve you to get what you want. And the second agreement is about, giving 100% of your sort of energy and time. If you're going to be here, if you're half in, you're going to get half the results you want. So what if you can take a couple of minutes right here? I'm watching you, right? And just maybe turn your phone onto airplane mode. Get rid of those notifications. Remove distractions. Have a pen and paper ready. Because and some of you, if you're thinking right now, I'm just going to work out while I do this, or I'm just going to walk the dog while I'm doing this. I get that. But guess what? You're only going to be half here. This is one of these things where I really want you to sort of decide that you can actually commit to being here 100%. So that, because I'm going to be 100% with you, and I want you to give me 100% back. Only if you want, and I know what you want. I've talked to leaders all over the world, I've talked to people all over the world, I've trained over 1 million people around the world. We all want the same things. We want to have freedom. We want to have choice. We want to be able to feel like we can contribute in some way and leave a legacy of our time on this planet. So, again, if you feel that you can sort of do 2 things, you can't. Not effectively. You're going to be half listening. You're not going to be told of taking clear notes. You're not going to be, because remember, the reason you've plugged into this is because there's something you want or something you don't have. And I want you to get that thing. So if you're sort of half in right now, maybe this is a moment to just take a breath and decide, close that door, put the notifications off, turn your phone on airplane mode, or sit down. If you're jogging right now, stop jogging, sit on the bench and just sit down and take it in. Now, each show is going to be anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. I could say, I'm going to squeeze it into 90 minutes, but guess what? I'm going to get going with these people. I don't know. We're going to see what happens in a few minutes here once I bring my guest on, and I don't know where it's going to go. But what I know I'm not going to do is I'm not going to try and squeeze when I want to sort of like to be able to bring more out. If I see an opportunity to ask another question, to get clarifying, or to help you understand from a new person's mind what's exactly how our leaders were thinking back when they were new, then I'm going to take that time. So again, 90 minutes is a minimum, 2 hours would be a maximum, but somewhere in between there, we're going to be going, and I want you to stay the course. Really stay the course, because it's worth it. All right. And then I always say, what's the end in mind? What is the thing you want to have at the end of these 6 weeks? Because if you can get clear on what you want, you're going to get there. Right. But don't get distracted, because if you want to have something different, you got to do something different. If you want to have something different, you've got to be different, which means we can't keep doing the same thing. So with that being said, my guest today, she's remarkable. We see her on news channels. We see her on television now. We see her in magazines. She was just recently interviewed on Forbes. But she has impacted directly and indirectly millions of lives, both in our profession and outside of our profession. Her brand is going to be a global brand. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. But when you'll hear, because I know her very, very well, she was one of my students when she was terrified to speak in front of a room, and now she has a global voice. And that's the beauty of our profession, because we grow into this. And she's been with Isagenix for 10 years. She's a 7-figure income earner, which is a big deal. She's thought about to be one of the top network marketers on the planet. But what I love about her is how real she is. I love that when I talk to her, I always feel my cup overflowing from what she speaks about. I love how real and authentic, and how clear and how honest she is about her own struggles. You're going to hear that because I want to dig into those struggles, because I want you to see that, like her, wherever you're starting right now, it doesn't matter. It's this journey. And I love that idea of a commitment. The next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Network marketing, Isagenix, is not easy. It's simple. And we're going to decode this each week. Over 6 weeks, we're going to decode the skill sets and what our leaders are doing to create the success that you want. Now, we are going to challenge you. So we're going to ask you to do different exercises, and there's going to be resources available to you. So today we will be focused on your vision, your why, and your story, okay? And at the end of it, we want you to be able to print off the template, isagenixbiz.com, and go into the resources, your story template, and work with it. Craft these things, listen to what the leaders are saying, and then bring them to life through your work and your practice. Remember, every master was once a disaster, including you, including me, including Kathy Kuva, and including our guest, the incredible Emily Vavra. So here we are. Week 1 of 6 weeks, and I got you. And guess what I got in my hand? I thought, how are you going to start this off? Because, people have been sitting, and I want people to know, we haven't spent 35 minutes here preparing anything.
No.
I just know that if we truly believe what we believe, and if we do what we do the way we do it, that we can push record and we can really give value to the world, because the whole world's going to be listening to this. But I thought, I'm going to put you under the gun first. I'm going to push my little start. I'm going to give you 90 seconds to answer 2 questions. I'm going to do 2 90 seconds. So first one is 90 seconds. You could use as much time as you want. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to stop you at 90 seconds. All right? So the first question is this. Why network marketing? Go.
Why network marketing? Well, first of all, why not? Here is the most genius business model when you find the right company that you can plug into a business for little overhead, right, to start, and you have everything at your fingertips. You have the resources, you have training tools, you have mentorship, and so you're able to plug into a business and work it literally in the pockets of your life. When the kids go to bed, get up early, in between your day-to-day. Why else, though, is it's the rise of the entrepreneur. So many people are looking for a way to work from home, to build residual income, but it can be so difficult to start your own company. You need a lot of cash for that, right? You have to have a lot of time for that, and a genius idea. And so network marketing, especially in the health and wellness sector, is really amazing, because you're able to plug into product innovation, to a scientific team, to an entire compensation plan that is designed for you. And I love it for another reason, is you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. And the only way you win is if you help others win as well. So it becomes this beautiful energy and culture of a business model, because literally it's a service-based business, meaning you have to be in service to others, teaching, training, coaching, and it just helps you rise. It's also an incubator for personal development. So many people join network marketing simply because something is missing in their life, right? They want to find a new group of friends. They want to find something to challenge them. And this can be the way to do that. And as the world shifts, as technology shifts, as jobs shift, I mean, so much is turning to, smartphones, robots, you name it. With network marketing, the one thing that we have is referral-based marketing, which is the greatest form, I believe. And people buy things from people they like, know, and trust. So we're in this referral-based economy, which you get directly compensated for that. And then why else? It's residual. I mean, I could talk forever.
Listen, I gave you 90 seconds, and we're probably about 2.5, which is okay.
Oh my gosh.
But no, okay. It's okay. But I'm going to challenge you again, because you can hear the passion coming out. Again, I want people to know this isn't sort of something we pre-thought and put you on the spot. I'm going to keep you to 90 seconds this time. I loved it, though. You were on such a roll, I couldn't stop you. 90 seconds. Why? Listen, you were just recently interviewed by Forbes. I mean, right before we started recording this for the world, you were on, was it ABC?
Yeah.
Right. So your message is, your brand, your message, is as successful outside of our profession as inside. But why Isagenix? How come that you have this affinity, this connection, this loyalty, this everything? I mean, what is it about Isagenix that makes you Emily Vavra? What is this connection? Why have you chosen Isagenix? Ready? And go.
I chose Isagenix 10 years ago, purely because I was attracted to the products. I wanted better nutrition. I had struggled with my energy levels, feelings of uneasiness. And so if you look, I mean, even 10 years later, I look at the world and every single person eats food. I'm obsessed with health and wellness. However, all health and wellness companies are not created equal. Product integrity is just not there. Innovation's just not there, right? And so I love Isagenix because it not only can serve someone that's looking for weight wellness, weight loss, performance, youthful aging, which I'm so passionate about, children's nutrition. So we've got that whole gamut. But then you really look deeper and you actually look at it from a business perspective. And I'm loyal to Isagenix because of the Cougars and of what they have done and their commitment to helping millions upon millions of people live better lives and the culture they've created behind it. And the thing that I love about it is that I know it's going to be here. It's always going to be here. It's not a flash in the pan type of company. It's not a hype company. It's very real. I also choose it because of the compensation structure. A binary compensation plan. Okay, you want me? Okay.
No, you're almost there. You got
a binary compensation plan, which I believe is the simplest form of network marketing. So those are just a few reasons why I choose it. But I've been in the space of network marketing, and I have seen other companies. And I will just tell you, this is tried and true, right? And so you can hang your hat on it.
Well, I look at people like us who, and I say us, I mean, because, either one of us could succeed in any profession we ever chose. And, we have the confidence to walk into anywhere. But I mean, like you said, the loyalty and the connection and the Cougars, who they are, how they show up in their imperfection. It's not about perfection. It's about imperfection.
Right.
But it's about their vision as well. And I'm going to get to vision because I think it plays such a big part But before we get to vision, I want to take you back a moment, because when we see you today, it's so easy to get caught up in the Emily of today.
Right.
You know, the brand, the message, the clarity, the fun you have, the certainty. I mean, your social media is exploding. Your brand is exploding. Again, inside the profession, outside. You're recognized as one of the top professional network marketers on the planet now by some of the top professional network marketers alive. But what was it like when you started out? Take us back. How many years ago was it when you started?
10.
10 years ago. So we're going to go back in time.
Yeah.
All right, take you back in time. Who was Emily back 10 years ago? And just introduce us to the Emily that said yes, and that first box arrived. What were you thinking about? What was going on in your life? How was life? How was your bank account? How were your relationship? Give us a kind of a look into the past.
Yeah, I love this. I absolutely love it. So 10 years ago, I worked as a massage therapist, a nanny. I was young, hungry, searching. I competed in fitness for a year because I wanted a challenge. And, you know, when I got that box, I was hopeful, excited, but I had never had personal development. I didn't even know what that looked like. And, you know, I remember as I started to work with my mentor, and she would say, like, what do you want? What do you want from this? Let's make a vision board. And, you know, I would see her vision board and I'm like, wow, like there's this big picture stuff. And I'm like, 6 figures, like, wait, 100,000 a year. I mean, I was like 28,000 a year at the time.
Oh, by the way, as a massage therapist, that means that you were working with one person, and obviously you're in massage therapy because you love to help. So your calling was obviously to help people, but there's only, even if you worked your butt off all day, you could only service how many clients? 7, 6 a day?
That's a crazy day, but yeah, at maximum. And then, you know, I'm also on their schedule. So if they would cancel, if they'd show up late, all the things, right? And so, you know, when I was presented with this and what it could be, you know, I remember her just showing me, you know, this is what it could be. Here's all the opportunities. And my mind really was so small at the time. Like I was like, listen, let's pay rent and get our products paid for, because that was and is life changing. Absolutely. But I had to grow and expand. And she quickly saw with me that at the time I would blame a lot. I blamed, you know, the way I grew up. I blamed others. I blamed my boss. I just had that mindset of like, it's their fault, you know, the victim mentality, I call it. And then I started, you know, to realize after she called me out that I was blaming other people for my current situation, and that was going to get me nowhere. So that was like step number 1. And once I started to take ownership for my life, David, and really step into, you made the decision, here's your result, that's on you, things started to dramatically shift for me. Like, it was just like, wow, because I realized with Isagenix, if anything's going to happen with this, it's completely up to me. And I got to take that on. Otherwise, I'm going to blame my upline. I'm going to blame whoever for not getting the results. And I find a lot of people do that. And so when I just took full ownership, that's when I started to really grow as a woman and really shift and step into my power.
It's funny when you say you were really young, because everyone looking at you, I think I've got socks older than you. but let's talk about that. So here you are earning 28 grand a year, never done any kind of personal development. You're kind of in a victim kind of mindset, still wanting to help people, which obviously you were doing, but still at the end of the day, grumbly or blaming the boss. But money was really tight. I mean, you were more in what, would you call it a survival mode back then? Or what was it? You weren't thriving, were you?
Yeah, no, I had a hard spot, and I ended up moving in with my mentor, Holly. We were both single, and we're like, why not? Let's build our empire. And literally I had a mattress that was on the floor in this like makeshift ghetto room. It was like this not even like a door. It was like this sliding thing. And that was my little room. and I had my mattress on the floor. And when I moved in, I just had some big garbage bags of clothes. And I want to say this, like, people see me now and you know that I'm very passionate about style. But David, those first 12 to 24 months, I didn't buy anything new. I went to I consigned my clothes to get money. And then I went there to buy, nicer stuff to go to Isagenix events or my Isagenix meetings so I could play the part. But that's where I started. And my extra money went back into events, books, things like that, not excess, not, I stopped going out. You know how much drinks can be, at that time in my life. That's not where my money went or my time.
Are you telling me as a young, beautiful, single woman, you were still having to buy your own drinks? That sounds terrible.
Well, not always. No,
yeah, exactly. Let's talk about belief. Before we get into the vision part, which I really want to get to, we're going to talk about the vision, we're going to talk about why, and we're going to really sort of unpack how you use your story and how you share your story and how you teach your story. Those are the three elements that we want to work on today. Again, knowing that this is the week 1 of 6 weeks, and with so many of our leaders coming on and trainers and working together to really help everyone who's listening right now to really move and take that step. Mm-hmm. And you and I know that people have been sitting at home for a lot, and we know that they're how do they engage with this so it actually has an impact? So do you want to talk a little bit about that, about how maybe to approach this 6 weeks, how to approach this next hour and a half, however long we are, right? That people really, it means something because it's their time. They're trading their time right now for time with you and I. And I really want it to be valuable. And what I keep saying is it's not about what we say on here. It's about what happens the minute they hang up, the minute they get off here. What's going to be different. And you're such a great example of someone who was kind of stuck in a world without understanding there was a whole other possibility. And today, even today, I bet you wake up each day and that possibility, that vista is getting bigger and wider and clearer. And I'm just guessing, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that you're feeling more on purpose today, 10 years later, than you ever have in your life at this moment. Is that right?
100%. I am more hungry today. It's a different hunger. In the beginning, it was a hunger to survive, to be my own boss, to pay the bills. And now it's all about serving other people. And like my biggest thing is I just want to give people hope and the tools and the training that you can too. And, as you approach these 6 weeks, if you're somebody watching this, listening to this, and you really want your life to change, like it's like burning in you, then you need to take this and apply it. And that's the difference with people, David, that soar. They start to, enroll people. They get to the top rank of executive. They live their dreams. They start stepping in as they apply it. And anything I've ever done that I want to learn, whether, in the beginning it was prospecting and enrolling and how to close someone and your story and how to do the compensation plan and all the things, anything I've ever wanted to do, be a speaker, I get so into it. Meaning if I have the ability to access a training program that's going to give me the roadmap of how to do it, I get so into it, meaning I listen to it and I re-listen to it and I re-listen to it. So you may be watching this at home, but why not play it on your run? Why not play it in the car? Like multiple times we've heard, repetition is the mother of skill, but then apply it. And there's something that happens when we actually write things down. I run around with this notebook all day long. Yeah, half the things are recorded, but what happens to my brain, and maybe David can explain this, but like I actually, when I write it down, David, I seem to retain it so much better. And then I review it and then I apply it and I say, okay, they said to find your why. Okay, did I really find my why, or did I just listen to them? And so that's the difference that makes all the difference. So first you got to make that decision. Am I going to be full in on this or am I going to half-ass it?
Yeah. And, if you half-ass it, you're going to get half-ass results, right? And
Right?
we're going to be looking back 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 years, 12 years from now, and looking back thinking, you know what? I could have made a different choice. When you were talking about this, the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic kind of learning, right? And so the visual, people love to write and see, right? And so writing is a part of, it's firing different synapses in the brain and driving it deeper, because we're sort of creating new neural pathways in the brain. And we can't do that just by sitting and just listening. So the writing part, the speaking part, and then the acting, the actual movement, actually getting into action and sort of learning by doing versus just learning by learning, which again, you didn't just, how messy, that's just a great question. How messy was Emily Vavra when we take you back 10 years ago to you as a network marketer? Just give us a little, how messy were you?
Oh, I was so in my head, not in my heart. I was tripping on my words. I was verbal vomiting on people. I hardly asked questions. So one of the greatest skills in this business is asking people questions and letting them talk and then uncovering it. But for me, I was like, and I was like, I would like dove in and I was like, and I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm horrible. And even some of the stage pieces, I just look back and I'm like, thank God for David Wood and personal development, because I was a hot mess. But you know what? Some of that didn't even matter because people felt my energy and I was moving forward. Why so many people, David, are stuck and they're not moving forward. At least I was moving forward. And that energy and, that is really what signed people up. And that conviction of, so she's going to do something with it. I want to be a part of it.
Well, and you were moving forward in your career previously, but because of the cap on most JOBs, the cap of time and you working one-on-one, there is the sort of the idea that every single person listening, whether you're brand spanking new, and you will get the recording of this and you'll be able to listen to it, like Emily said, over and over and over again. But, the idea that, when we're starting out, right, we're every single person, Kathy, when I think about Kathy, when she first started out in network marketing, she was a hot mess, right? And we see her today, she's one of the most respected network marketers on the planet Earth, right? And yet she was a hot mess. So, it's okay to be messy. And I want to sort of go back into, how did you develop your belief? Did you believe, were you kind of like, how did you believe in network marketing? How did you get your belief? The products are easy. Almost every single person falls in love and can believe in the product day one. But just talk about briefly, how important is belief? Who's responsible for our belief system? And how do we cultivate? And I always say the 6 areas of belief: the belief in the company, belief in the compensation plan, the belief in network marketing, which always seems to be the sticky one for a lot of people, belief in self, belief in and self becoming a network marketer. So belief in, not just belief in self, because that's a moving target. Even you might have bad moments. I don't imagine you have bad days anymore, but I'm guessing you have bad moments, right?
I have bad moments, definitely. Yeah, the belief is absolutely everything. And when I came into Isagenix, of course, I believed in the products. Like, I saw so many results like that. I felt it. That wasn't even a thing. For me, it was the profession and the really believing and standing firm. This is a profession. And so I went to events, obviously going to events and learning from all these 6 and 7 figure earners and really just, confirming everything about the profession and what's possible. But then I would read books from Robert Kiyosaki and David, you had a video on like debunking myths and network marketing. Anything I could do to learn the industry. Paul Zane Pilzer, the next wave of millionaires. He's a world leading economist. I read his book and I started to really try to understand the industry and that it just made so much sense to me. The more I looked at it, the more I read about it, and then just got around people that were actually doing it and had success with it, and it increased my belief. And so I just got in proximity to them. If I could, at the time living in Minnesota, I would just try to be around the people that were achieving those ranks, that already became a millionaire, maybe with the company. And I would just listen to the way they talked. I would listen to the way they walked. I would listen to the way, they served another person. And I was like, this is it. I don't know another thing that I could do that could serve people on all these different levels. Yeah, I may have great work and things I do now, but I still can't take someone and say, here's a vehicle, sit into it. Here's how you're going to grow. You're going to grow your income and all the things that network marketing can provide. I'm friends with people in LA and the Hollywood scene, professional athletes, and a lot of times they're the ones that make all the money. But how do they help their sister? How do they help their girlfriend? They oftentimes can't. And so this is a vehicle to help you do that. And I really started to realize that after I spent time around people that were succeeding in this profession, and if I couldn't get that physical time, I creeped on them, I watched them, I studied them, and success leads.
Well, there's another word that you may not be using, which I think I witnessed with you, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you modeled. And I think for me, it's always been my shortcut. People say, well, how come, you went from being a dishwasher earning $4 an hour to a multi-millionaire? How did that happen? And I said, well, I modeled success. I noticed that, and I actually posted about this today. I noticed that that my language wasn't the language of somebody who was going to be successful. Right. My peer group wasn't a group of people that wanted success. They were all stuck, and they were just resigned to a life that again, like you, I wasn't aware that there was a possibility for a guy like me who had left school at 15, had no qualifications, didn't know anybody, to succeed at the highest level. No one told me that. I mean, I was told the opposite by my teachers, that you're going to be a failure, you're going to end up in jail, you're going to end up on the streets. But modeling is what's beautiful about our profession, because every single leader, like you're doing now, it's not like you've got a secret playbook and you've got the playbook that you're going to talk about today. Right. It's like everything you're going to share openly and lovingly, and other people can listen to you. They can model your language. They can model how you think. They can model how you walk. And it's not giving up a part of ourselves. What I learned about modeling was it was the shortest route from where I was to where I wanted to be. Because when I started to behave, when I started to walk, when I started to think like people who were successful, what happened was, almost through osmosis, is I became successful. Talk a little bit about that whole modeling process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I grew up with a single mom. We had some hard times growing up. And so when I got into Isagenix, it was like, and I love my mom and I'm grateful for the way I grew up. But when I got into Isagenix, I was like, whoa, like all these people live so different, and they dream and they love big, and they show gratitude. And I remember it vividly. Kathy Cooper was like, start your day and text a couple of people and tell them why you're grateful for them. And I'm like, the founder of $1 billion company is saying this, and this must be a clue, right? And so I just started to model. I mean, she's one of my greatest role models as a woman, and I saw the way she carried herself and the confidence she has, but yet at the same time, so much love and compassion for others.
And humility, right?
Humility, yeah. And that's it. And so, and I'd also see, my mentor start to do, meetings, and I would watch the way she would converse with people, and I would watch the way she'd ask questions, and I really, I watched the way she drew the compensation plan every single meeting, even if they just wanted the products. And so I modeled that behavior. I mean, even the simple things like just taking care of ourselves, like painting my nails and putting myself together and walking like a millionaire and talking like a millionaire, and really, watching these other people and what they did and how they did it. And I modeled it. And, there was a period where I was like, am I trying to just copy people? Am I being true to myself? And the more like I started to really dive into my soul and personal development, you figure it out. Like first you kind of become a copycat, and then you grow into who you were made to be, and you become more authentic with it. Cause I will admit, David, at first I felt like I was like, is this like Emily, or am I just being like a robot to all these other people? And then, as I started to grow as a woman, I really is like, no, my soul says do this. And so that's how I showed up, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And before we move into this vision part, I keep teasing the vision, but I'm gonna just ask you let's look at that brand new person right now. I just want you to look into the camera and just tell them something before we get started again, because they're looking at you. I can tell, I can feel it in my soul. They're looking at you. You're so well put together. You're articulate. You're beautiful. You're passionate. You earn over $1 million a year, and that's gonna, just keep climbing. So the relatability part maybe isn't there for them. They can see you out there, and I know you did the same when you walked in. You sat there in those seats, earning your $28,000 a year, in your blaming world, and you used to look out and think, I can never be like them, because it doesn't matter what we look like, it matters what we feel like. Right. And the most beautiful women I know, quite often they walk in and they have such low self-confidence that they don't feel pretty, even though the whole world's telling you, oh, you're gorgeous. Right. So that process, just have a little chat with that person listening to you right now that maybe is not relating to us right now. They may be saying, well, that's okay for you, but I'm in this marriage that isn't working, or I've got 3 jobs right now and I have no time, or, you don't know, I've been through so much in my past, and, I've never been able to move ahead. What's your message to them before we get going?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you're seeing me in my 10-year journey, right? It's been 10 years of development. And David, how long for you?
150 years.
Yeah. So you're seeing us now. Okay. So hello, please don't judge. If I could, I would show you literally my first year so you could relate, because honestly, there's so much of me and you and me. There absolutely is. I came from an abusive household growing up. I started this thing, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. I didn't have the mindset I have today. I didn't have the money I have today. I would post on social media and 3 people would like it. One was my mom, one was my sister, and one was my best friend. I had 900 Facebook friends. I didn't know all these things yet. And so I tell you this to make you understand that we're on this journey together. Okay. And I want you to be grateful to be here now, and to know that, with an attitude, like it's all in your attitude. If you decide to have an attitude of growth, then you're going to allow yourself to step in and grow. But if you only look at, hey, I don't have what they have, I don't have the smarts they have, then you're, listen, you're always going to be that way if you have that attitude. So humble yourself, put your guard down, and grow with us, because it's the greatest gift you can give yourself is your own personal development. And just know that in what we do every single day, I work with people that have lost their jobs. They've been in horrible marriages. They're single parents. One woman on my team lost her daughter last year in a tragic accident. These painful things that we all go through, this thing called life, it's what makes you beautiful, and what makes you real. And so never be ashamed of your story, of your current situation. I think there's great power in it, but I want you to understand that we're gonna grow out of it and beyond it. And so just accept it and embrace it, and smile, like literally smile right now, and trade the expectation of how you think your life should be right now for appreciation. Because when you fell down and broke your knee and got that scar, it's made you stronger. When you went through that horrible divorce, it made you so much stronger, so much wiser. When you learned how to be a single parent, it taught you how to be more present, how to be more resilient. All the things you've been through is what really shaped you as a human. So I want you to look at that.
Yeah, and I want to take you back. I remember the first event I think you came to of mine. I think it was called Journey to the Stage at the time. And I remember how terrified when I put a microphone in your hand, like there was no way. You were scared. And what I always start my events with, I always talk about the comfort zone. and how, and I ask people to describe it, and people say, it's mundane, it's the same old, it's predictable, it's boring, it's lifeless. And yet the brain, if we understand how the brain works, it does everything in its power to keep us locked in the comfort zone. And then I ask people their vision. What is it they want from life? Whether it's travel, or whether it's beautiful relationships, or whether it's money, or whether it's whatever it is, and that sort of vision. And what we understand is that the vision that we're wanting to create is actually outside of our current zone of comfort. And so even you right now, as accomplished as you are looking at bigger and more, there are things that you're being asked to do on a daily basis right now, which feel uncomfortable because they're outside of your current zone of comfort. Can we just talk a little bit about that? Because if someone is listening to us right now and they want to stay put, they kind of want to dream a little bit, but they really want to stay put. They think that as soon as they get uncomfortable, we know a lot of people quit our profession because as soon as they get that first or second or third no, which feels uncomfortable, that people are starting to sort of question the very thing, yet without understanding that actually where the juice is, where the passion is, where the great relationships are, where all the money exists, where all the adventure exists, is actually outside of our current, and I say our current, zone of comfort. And every single time we go out there and we stay out there for any length of time, we expand that zone of comfort and we start to see things we can't currently see from that vantage point. So do you want to just touch on that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. When I went to David's first event, I remember it vividly. I was 23 and a half. I was wearing a yellow tank top. My hair was crazy. And I remember my armpits were sweating. My heart was racing. You could put me, I can feel how I felt then. And I was like, hopefully he doesn't call on me. Hopefully he doesn't call me. This is like the idiot in my head that we have that little guy. I was like, maybe I can hide. Maybe I can disappear. Like, hopefully he just gets through this next session and he doesn't call me up. You guys, that's where I was at. But the thing is, when he did call me and I went up there, and in the moment, I didn't like it, but after, I felt like I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I was like, that's what it feels like. Wow, I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more confident. And that's what it's like every single time you step outside of your comfort zone. This morning, going on the news, you never know which way it's going to go. And I was like, I had the scaries in my stomach. And I know though, because I have a good relationship with it now, I'm like, ooh, when this is done, I'm gonna feel so good and it's gonna set the day right. And then I also turn it to, and this is a really good thing for all of you to think about, whenever you feel freaked out or scared, turn it back to other people, meaning who is this gonna help? Who is this gonna serve? So whenever I'm backstage, or gosh, when I was sitting in my purple Saturn getting ready to do an Isagenix presentation at the coffee shop, and I felt nauseous because the person I was about to meet with was more successful than me. And I would always think to myself, is this about you, Emily, or is this about them? And when I made it about them, David, it's like, that's when I was like, it's like I got this energy and a little bit of momentum to go do whatever I had to do, the meeting, pitch Isagenix, do the talk, whatever. And my relationship has changed with it. But every day, I'll tell you, every day I still deal with it. But I know now, if I'm not getting uncomfortable, then I'm not growing. And when you start to get uncomfortable, okay, you're going to start to see things, like David said, from a completely different perspective, a completely different vantage point. And that's how you grow. So every day, I look at my vision board. I have a vision board even today, 10 years in, and I look at it and say, what have I done today to step outside of my comfort zone? And if days go by and I haven't done anything, then that's problematic, because I know that I'm not growing.
Yeah, let's start on the vision. It took me a while to get there. You know me. That's what I love about how we work, because it's just like, Emily, we don't even need to talk about what we're going to do. I'm just going to push play, invite all these people in to be with us. But let's go to vision, because the vision, really, if we understand the vision, it's the world that we want to build. Yet you and I understand, having worked with as many people as we have, that a lot of people barely dream. because they've just sort of succumbed or given up or accepted this is their lot in life. And maybe when you were, earning 28,000 a year, the reason you were blaming so much was probably because you were in that mindset a little bit of this is it. This is kind of what I got to look forward to. My mom, I've watched what she's done her life. She's done a great job growing me, but obviously there's a limitation to what life really offers. Talk about vision. What does vision really mean? And how can we start this 6 weeks off with really sort of clarifying this first step, the vision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a vision, the people will perish. You've probably read that before. And when I found Isagenix, it was really the first time that I understood that having a vision was so important. I think before, because I've always been a dreamer, like we all have visions, we don't even really realize it. But when you really start to actually think about what your vision is for your life, for your purpose, it oh my gosh, it magnifies. It becomes, you have that personal awareness. And so, your vision is so important for your life. But let's right now, look at Isagenix in particular. For these next 6 weeks, I always tell people and ask people when they start anything with me, a 6-week program, envision yourself in the end of 6 weeks. What do you want to learn? How do you want to feel? Do you want to be more confident? Is there a rank you want to achieve? And what does all that look like? And really crystallizing that vision. Are you someone watching this right now that, you're like, my goodness, I really want to learn how to get my products paid for, right? And that's really what I want to learn how to do. I'm not sure how to do that. Or maybe you're someone that's like, I want to be my own boss so bad. Okay, but what does that even look like, right? Like, what does that look like day to day? And so this morning, and I've been doing this for 10 years, when I get up in the morning, I love to go outside and just sit. And I'm here on the Pacific Ocean in Southern California. And I like just to sit and just visualize, what do I want to feel? What do I want it to look like? And really go down the line of that. Maybe you're somebody that doesn't get a lot of time with your children, and maybe you want to provide them with experience, traveling, and things that cost money, let's face it. So imagine what that vision of you spending time, or imagine you waking up wherever in the world you want to live. You're not tied to a job, and what that looks like and what that feels like. And it's so amazing when you're able to manifest and dream and take time and have a ritual, which I do in the morning, 5 minutes. And I just go down, and I visualize, the people I'm helping. I see them, I see what I'm doing. And this takes time. This takes a lot of time. Some of you, when you're getting started, this may feel really weird and woo-woo, but the more you do it, the more you're going to start to manifest things into reality, and your actions will eventually, I believe, meet up to make those visions come true. Does that kind of help, David?
Yeah, of course. I would say there's 3 elements, right vehicle, right time, right you. I always say, I like to draw a pyramid. A pyramid. Yeah, right vehicle, right time, right you. And this is kind of right you part. If I go back to, even when I came to this city, I was earning $4 an hour as a dishwasher. But I remember doing my first vision board, and it wasn't very big. And I remember going and getting magazines. How important, you say that you've got a vision board, it's up in your house right now. Is that a good place for everyone to start? Is actually to take some time? And is there any, if you were sitting with one of your team members right now, and you were sort of asking them to sort of discover their vision and maybe to use an aid like a vision board. Visualization is the thing that they do on a daily basis to bring that to life. But is that somewhere you take your team, is to sort of start, let's start picturing the world that you want to live in, you want to build, the one that doesn't exist currently. Can you sort of lead us through some thoughts or some tips or how to start out in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people, and maybe you watching this right now, like you have been working a full-time job, you've been a supportive husband, supportive wife. So many people, we're like living day to day. If you're not in this environment, a lot of people are just, I'm going to go ahead and say it, robotic, Okay. You have just been taught to work for the man and have a couple vacation weeks a year. You know, you've stopped dreaming. A lot of people that I talk to, David, have literally stopped dreaming, or they maybe never even started. And so one of my favorite things to do with people is to just sit and ask them questions. What would you do? What would you do if time wasn't an issue, if money wasn't an issue? And just grab a sheet of paper and start brain dumping, and don't hold back. No, what would you do? Not what.
Let's do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Everyone grab a piece of paper and pen. All I'm going to do is get
Yes.
you to write down the questions, just so that as you're doing this, you're not going to have to go back and try and listen to Emily one more time. We're going to take a second with each one of these. And so let's write down questions that come to mind. I just want to, again, imagine that we're just sitting with one of your team right now, and maybe it's you 10 years ago. What are the questions that your mentor would be asking you to start to open up this idea? And I love what you said. And I'm telling you, most people I know don't dream. They dream of certain things, like they dream of their vacation, or they dream of Friday night.
Right.
That is the kind of the limit of most people. I mean, that thank God it's Friday.
I
want to
know.
go smack people who are wearing it.
I know.
Thank God it's Friday. What, thank God it's right now. Thank God I can do this with my finger. Thank God,
Right.
you know, right? But so let's, you know, we're sitting you down 10 years. And what are some maybe five fundamental questions that you want to ask someone? And we're going to write these down. So we're going to repeat them 2 or 3 times, just so people can write them down.
Yeah. What does your ideal day look like? If you could live a day, what would it look like? What would you do if time?
No, slow down. So what would your ideal day? They're writing it down. So I'm watching you people. Come on, write it down.
Write it down.
Yeah, write it down, people.
What would it look like? You know, for example, for me, I love being active and outside. That's like my time with God and nature. And when I worked a full-time job, I could hardly ever be outside because I worked all day. And so I wanted to be able to like work out at noon on a Monday. It's so random, but I just want to be able to walk and do calls and work from wherever. It seems so simple, but it's really.
Oh yeah, but hold on, go back to your world. You were sitting in a little dark room with the lights turned down, with sometimes bodies in front of you that maybe weren't the funnest to massage, you know, hairy backs and stuff.
Oh, I got stories. Okay.
Right? So I can imagine you saying that, and even though you want to give to this person, I can imagine your heart yearning to be able to go wander outside and smell the roses, not the body odor of someone like, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's so funny.
Okay, so question number 1, what would your ideal day look like?
Yes. And you know, what would you do if money wasn't an issue for you? Like truly, what would you do? And again, I remember the bills would come, the cell phone bill would come, the bills would come. And I had this little drawer and I would just shove it and hope that they just disappeared. That was my relationship with the bills. And, you know, so what would you do? What, you know, and what would you pay off credit card debt, student loan, or, you know, where would you go? You know, and it's not about things, it's about experience. And I shared this with our team a couple weeks ago, and I shared with them, you know, in the beginning of my journey, people like kind of laughed at me to my face, behind my back, like, what are you really doing? And, you know, I remember I wanted to provide my family with experience because we didn't come from a lot. And my brother is obsessed with baseball and my sister's a school teacher. And, you know, we were all in town one night and the Minnesota Twins were playing. And I was like, there's a game. Do you guys want to go? And everyone's minds was like, that costs money. Like, no, let's just stay home because it's money and it's like a good game and it's going to be hard to get seats. And I could just tell everybody was just like, no. And I was like, no, I want to create this experience. If we could go, would you guys go? And they're like, my brother's like, of course I would go. My brother's a pilot now, but you know, he's like, of course. And I said, okay. So I went on and I bought 6 tickets, like lower level, the best seats in the house, right there. You could practically touch the baseball players. And I said, okay, I got them, we're going. And they all were like, our baby sister bought us tickets to this game. What? Like, how much do I owe you? And I go, you don't owe me anything. Let's just have fun. And that, like, to provide that experience for my family, it's just the simple things, but it's such a big thing, you know, to be able to do that. And so I want to get your minds going. What would you do if money wasn't an issue?
And remember, this is about your future that you're creating. So don't get stuck in, because a lot of your minds are going to do this. Your minds are going to go to, that's right, but I'm only earning $28,000 a year.
Right.
You can't do that. What we're doing now, we're envisioning a world that doesn't yet exist, you know? And for me, I mean, I remember on that early vision board, because I just sailed across the Atlantic, you know, I hitchhiked across and through the Caribbean for a year. So I lived on sailboats for an entire year. And one of my visions was to own a boat. And because for me, it was like, these people that own boats back then, remember, I was a backpacker.
Right.
They were like the wealthiest people on the planet to me, because they just would get on their boat and sail across an ocean. And they had time freedom and money freedom and adventure and uncertainty. And I was like, oh, you talk about impact. So I remember on my vision board, it was the idea that I could walk in one day and buy the boat that I wanted and be able to live on board whenever I wanted. And that's a reality I have today, which is awesome. All right, let's go to question 3.
Yeah, so what would you do? Time, and now time, if time wasn't an issue for you. So you have money, time, okay? So really get you thinking about like your time, like maybe you're strapped at a job and maybe you love that, but maybe you want to cut your hours down. You know, I just onboarded a new personal trainer to our team, and he loves personal training, but he doesn't love it 6 days a week. He's like, I would love to honestly, he goes, really, Emily? Because I asked him this, he goes, I would love to just personal train twice a week. He goes, because then I could have my favorite clients that I love, but my other days I would work on my online program. And I would work on, and we started to really get going and dreaming in that way. So he doesn't have to be there 6 days a week, right? So what would you do if time wasn't an issue? And then, David, I really like people to, when they make vision boards, is to look at all the different areas of their life, their health, their finances, their relationships, their spiritual life.
Contribution
is absolutely huge. And then you go to those areas and write out, you know, I love to even write out and do this every quarter. I like to write out on a scale of 1 to 10, like, where do I feel like I'm at in those areas? Do I feel like I have rich, meaningful relationships, or if I've really been like slacking on that because I'm working too much? Do I feel like I am, you know, working on my faith and my mind and my spiritual life, or have I been on my smartphone and not spending any time working on that, you know? And so I go back to that, and I always find pictures or things that are around these subjects that I want to grow. And I put that on my board as a reminder every day. And it's in my office over here, my new one, because I just went and I had on my desktop, I have a folder, and I find pictures specific, and I put them in the folder, and then I get them printed at CVS, and then I put them on the board. So it's very specific.
Yeah.
And when I started Isagenix, I had Crystal Executive by this date on the board. Forever, I've had the number of cycles I wanted on the board, the number of executives on the team on the board, all those things.
Well, yeah, and I see one of the things questions I always ask is, you know, how do I want to contribute? You know, this idea about giving back, because I know the purpose is such a big thing. So once I've looked at where I want my time, where I want, you know, again, I'm taking myself back as well, but there was this idea that I wanted to contribute. I wanted to have a purpose that was bigger than me. And I remember that was one of the hard things at the time, because I didn't value myself enough to think that I could contribute to people's lives, right? There was something like that, right?
You?
Yeah, me.
How did you find that?
How did I find my purpose?
Yeah.
You know, I always say there's 3 most important days of your life: the day you're born, the day you discover why, and the day you start taking action towards that why. I discovered my purpose through my marriage was failing. My ex-wife, who's one of my best friends, Pam, she she asked to go to a personal development program. I'd never done personal development, right? And so she asked to go to this program. It was a 5-day program. And day 2 of the program, I remember sitting there. And again, I mean, you talk, and it was an extreme program. So imagine your first real personal development program is kind of like firewalks and high ropes courses and a 5-day intensive. It was called Warrior Camp, right? Warrior Camp. And at the halfway through the second day, I looked at my wife and I said, Pam, I said, I'm going to teach this program. I said, this is what I was born to do. And I went up to the trainer, which was T. Harv Eker, and I said, Harv, I said, I want to teach this program. And he looks at me, he says, well, yeah, of course you do. Everyone wants to teach it. And he was kind of like cynical. I said, well, what do I got to do? He said, well, you'd have had to take all my programs. This is the first one. So I took 13 of his programs and I followed him. I took a year off and followed him around the world. I just modeled everything he did. Yeah. And I modeled everything and I prepared myself. And then he finally told me, he said, you're too cocky for this. He said, you're never going to be on one of my stages. And I looked at him and I said, look, I'm just going to get ready. And I said, one day you're going to need me and you're going to call. And I was so pissed off because I just spent a year of my life chasing this guy around, investing all his time and money in something I believed I wanted. Anyway, what happened was he got sick. And there was an event in New York for 1,600 people. And some of our friends were there, people we know today who are in this company were at that event. And I went in there cold and ran a 2.5-day event for 1,600 people. And that's how it started.
Wow.
I haven't told that story before.
I am, wow, so inspired. That's incredible.
So we got the vision, but let's move it to the vision board then. So if we've got these questions, is there any other questions you'd ask?
No, I think that's good. I think that's enough.
Perfect. So you've talked about your process with a vision board. A lot of people get a bit afraid of putting one up. I always say, if you're afraid of putting up your vision board in your house, get some new friends.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously the reason you're afraid is because you think that people are going to judge you. Well, I guess what? And that's what I had to learn. I had to let go of a lot of people who couldn't believe in the world I wanted to create. And I mean, I'd still like them but I didn't start listening. I stopped listening to them and I started to listen to people that had the things I wanted.
Right.
So talk about if one of the processes is to create a vision board, give a couple of tips about that.
Yeah. So basically get all your stuff printed, get it all together, put it up where you can see it every single day. Cause it's not, you guys, if you cannot see it every day and have a moment, whether when you're sipping your coffee to just stare at it and have a moment with it, then what good is it going to do? Right. And I have a story of when I first made my vision board, my first year of Isagenix. I had a little corner makeshift office with my old desk, vision board, whiteboard, executive roadmap chart right there. And at that time in my life, I was still trying to figure out my friend group. And I had my old friends that I grew up with that came over. It was spring break. They were all at university. They came over and they poked fun at me because I wrote a check for $1 million and put that on that board. And
I did the same thing.
Oh my God.
Check.
Yeah.
And I did one better. I had it on the board, but I actually stuck it. And I know this sounds crazy, but I heard someone did this and I did it. I had it pinned to the ceiling. So every morning when I woke up, the very first thing I could see and the last thing I saw was the check on the ceiling above my bed. And that was there. And I remember when I first made $1 million, and I had $1 million in cash. I was like, it was like, how could it go from my ceiling to my bank account? What happens,
That's so cool. I love that. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. So, I mean, basically I made that board, had the friends over, and I realized, because they were literally making fun of me, not supportive, that's a huge growth moment for me because I felt sad, but then I stood back and I was like, okay, they don't really even like me. If they're not going to support me, I support them in all their careers at pharmacist school, all the different things that they're doing, nursing school. I love them and send love to them, but they're not in my life because they never supported it. And so that's when I, had a moment where I was like, do I really want to spend time with people that don't support me? No, I don't. And, it's so important to have your board up where you can see it, refocus on it every single day. And then, what David said is so important. You match action to it. So I look at it And, I'll go, okay, what are the things I'm doing to grow that area? Like if I say I, want this car or, this amount of income or, all the different things I'm working on now, like putting together a book, things like that. It's like, okay, it's not just going to like poof, it's here, and that's what some people think. It's like, oh, let me just think it. You're not like the genie rubbing the little bottle. Like you got to take action to meet it, and it's like, I swear that some people it's like they make this pretty board and it's like, oh, there's this house and all these things and they're just going to like think their way there. And it's like, that is not the thing. You
big bag of money is going to fall on their head.
Yeah.
As they're meditating. Yeah.
You're going to like win the lotto, it's just wild. And so that's where it's like so powerful if you practice this. This is the part I really don't feel like people talk about. You look at it, you have a moment in the morning or whenever you can get it in, and then you ask yourself the hard questions. What am I doing to achieve that? If that is what I want, and so it could be something like growing your faith. Okay, so how's your morning routine? Have you been getting up and having a ritual, a meditation practice? Have you, for me, like I'm really into breath work. So I'm taking classes to learn that and to grow in that. And I'm putting things out there to help me grow to be more spiritually sound, right? So if you ask yourself like those hard questions, what am I doing to actually achieve that? And that's the kicker for most people. And then if there's not something, you schedule.
Can I jump in something?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things I did as well, which I find, and I still do, is what am I doing that's moving me away from the things I want, which is sometimes harder. So what am I doing to move toward it? But some of the habits or behaviors I had were actually detracting or were actually moving me away. And I kind of identified those and I stopped doing them. And sometimes that was hard because I was in such a habit of doing things that moved me away from the things I wanted versus moving me towards. And so I actually had to give up some bad habits. And they weren't necessarily, if you looked at some were bad, that you say, why were you doing that? But then really sort of identifying what am I, and I took responsibility for it. What am I doing to move myself away from the dream and goal that I put up there? What am I doing to move myself away? And that was the harder part for me, was to actually confess to myself and take responsibility that I'm doing this. It's not, I got no one else to blame. And one of my favorite sayings, when I take 100% responsibility for everything in my life and everything not in my life, there's no one left to blame.
Yeah.
When I looked at that board and that wasn't in my life, then I just looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't blame anybody else. I looked at myself and said, what am I doing? And what am I taking responsibility for, right?
Powerful. So powerful. Oh, what are you doing to move yourself away? Right. I mean, that's really good. I just wrote that down.
I saw that way. Let's see. Great teachers, always great learners. Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about with vision, because we've got a couple more things to discuss, is the idea about doing a vision board with someone you love, if you're in a partnership or with your kids. What do you say? Should they have their own? Should they be included? I know that when I build vision boards, I always put the most important thing dead in the center and I build outwards. So I looked at that sort of thing. So typically it's the relationships that are center, and then I build out from the center, right? That's just me. But that's, everyone's got their own way. Do you have any thoughts about, whether someone should be doing it? What if they're in a relationship and their partner's not really into this, or they think it's too woo-woo? Yeah. Give us a couple of tips on that one.
Well, if you're an achiever, you're going to have 3 vision boards. you're gonna be like, here's the one for the kids, which I think is super powerful. What a great activity to do with your kids, right? Mom hits the goal, we're going to go to Disney, or, just different visions that they might have. Gosh, if I'm ever a parent, I would love to do that with my child, to teach them at a young age. And gosh, you could have a family fun night and teach them that whole practice and let them come up with things, and you guys do it together. It'll be so powerful. I really recommend including people in on your vision. Right. And that's why it's like, you should never be ashamed of having it out in front. So that way, if you're dating someone, if you're married, whatever, they should see your board. And, this is such a great way, especially for all of you that are new into the business, is to let them in on your dreams, goals, and desires. Let them in. A lot of times they feel left out because you've left them out. And we just assume they're not supporting us when in reality, like, you haven't included them on anything. So yeah, you're changing, evolving, growing. Naturally, they're going to feel a little threatened. So let them in and encourage them. Hey, do you want to make one together? Do you want, should we have a section for our relationship? And if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. That's fine. But I really recommend just opening it up, encouraging others to do the same. And I did this even with a group of my girlfriends that I work out with. And I said, text me all your boards. Like, let's hold each other accountable and really get this done. And like, let's do it. And so again, I believe like sharing it with people, doing it together is so powerful. And that's up to you. Like, if you want to do that with your spouse or whatever, but if you want to grow your relationship, it's going to grow a lot better if you both look at the things you want to work on versus just one of you. Otherwise, you're going to be like, I thought we were going to have Friday date night. And it's like, that's only your plan, right? So you need to do it together.
Love it. Love it. All right. Let's put the vision aside for a second. I think we've really given people a real understanding. Is there anything you want to add, or are we good?
No, I think it's
Let's
good.
go to the why. This is something that we know, and people say it all the time, the bigger the why, the easier the how. We know that the why. I mean, Kathy, if you ask Kathy, if she was sitting with us right now, she'll say your why has to be bigger than the obstacles you're facing, the obstacles that are in front of you. And she says that. But talk about the why and sort of let that, again, remember the new mind that's listening. Of course, our leaders are listening. There's other people maybe need a refresher on this. So even if you think you know this, remember this. The three most dangerous words in the human language are I know that. I know that, right? So the reason I know if you know it, if you're living it. If you're living it, yeah, maybe you can say, hey, I got this bit, because you have the life you want, the body you want, the relationships you want, the money you want, and the purpose you want. You got it, right? If you don't, then maybe there's something that Emily's about to say that could radically change what's going on with all of those areas of your life. So Emily, take us to the why. When you're sitting with your new person, that new woman, new man, new family, and you're starting to sort of ask them about that first why, what do you talk about?
It's so powerful. Every level, we always need a why. And it's absolutely true. When you know why you're doing, you can endure almost anything when it's strong enough. Okay. When you know why you're doing it. And so when I meet with anyone, it's very similar to like some of the vision board questions, but if somebody comes in and they're coming in for the results of our products, right? I'll ask them, how do you want to feel? What does that look like? And why do you want to feel that way? And, oftentimes, like if it's weight loss, people will break down and they'll say, I've been hiding behind baggy sweatpants. I don't feel comfortable, naked in bed, right? I really struggle with self-confidence. I have low energy, and I always love to dig deeper with that. How would you feel if you felt comfortable laying naked in bed? Like, how would that make you feel? I love to ask questions about like, what would you do differently? If you had more energy in your day and clarity, what would you do differently? So I really love to dig into that with people so that they can see that, it is so meaningful to them, because I feel we just march through life. And, unless you have somebody really digging into what's important to you and why it's important to you, you don't even think about it, David. People don't even think about, what's holding them back and why. Why is it holding them back? And how would it feel if they finally had a breakthrough? So that's my absolute favorite thing. And then looking at the business side of things, I love asking people, why are you doing the business? Why would you even do this? And I was on a call yesterday with a woman that's trying to adopt 2 kids right now that are they were in a troubled situation. She took them in, her and her husband are trying to adopt them, but she works a full-time job. So I was asking her, like, why do you want to do Isagenix? Like, really, how would that even make a difference for you? And she was just like, I want time. I want to be able to bring these kids in and have more time with them and create a different environment for them. And it costs money to have children. And I was like, okay, but why? And then she dove deeper, right? I can't have my own kids. And it was just like this really deep talk. And I feel like when you can dive deeper with people and really get to the heart, that's what's going to lock them in. That's what's going to lock you in to doing this. For me in the beginning, it was, I'm so tired of having somebody else tell me when I can go to the bathroom.
I'm jumping in on you, but that was what my why. I just didn't want to be told what to do by people.
Yeah.
And especially people I didn't. And so for me, it was like, it was that drove me so deeply because I was watching people who sort of didn't have a spark. That it was almost like the flame had gone out. And because they were resigned to live a life. And so for my why was I wanted to live in a world that I created where I could say yes to everything or anything I wanted to say yes to. And I didn't have to ask permission of anybody. I could just be able to do it. And it drove me in such a way because, and I don't know if it's because I grew up in such a tyrannic sort of upbringing where I was always told exactly what to think and how to think and what to do, that I kind of broke out of that. But yeah, that drove me very, very deeply in the beginning.
Oh, I love that. So beautiful. Yeah. I would just say, ask yourself, like, really, like, if someone hasn't asked you, ask yourself this, write it down, tell someone why you're doing it and the deep rooted reason behind it. And it can be light. Like, it can be simply because you maybe this isn't light, but some people, they want to be heard. They want to be a leader. They want to be known for something. That's okay. That's a great, noble thing.
Well,
right?
Also in the beginning, it could just be money. I mean, if you're struggling financially, and you just need an extra $500 a month, and you know that that's going to give you that leg up. I mean, having that early why quite often can be that, or credit card debt. It can be something that doesn't feel like it's linked to a vision of life.
Right.
It can be very much about a first step why.
Yeah.
We know so many of our leaders that, their first step was, it could have been like, having enough money to send their son to a private school, or having enough money to free their husband from a job that he hated and he's losing his spirit in. And some people, it was just having enough money to be able to walk into work one day and say, I'm out of here, because they just dislike the environment. So sometimes it's not linked to that big thing, is it? It can be linked to those very small things.
100%. That's and it's an evolutionary process. So maybe you're on a team of people that their whys are all grandiose, and that's not your thing. Doesn't need to be your thing. Like, let it be your thing. And I just remember so vividly, for me, like David and I were just saying, I didn't want to work for someone else. I didn't want to have someone to boss me around. I wanted to create. I wanted to design my days. And that was the thing, David, like that hope and vision of just being able to wake up after I was done sleeping and to really,
Wait, you said that very fast, but a new person may not have got the nuances of that. Imagine living in a world where you wake up after you're done sleeping, not with the alarm clock. That to me is like, because that sinks to my freedom heart. It's like, I wake up in a world where when I'm done sleeping, I wake up.
Yep. Here I am. Yeah, imagine and getting to choose who you work with and things like that. I wanted it so bad. I became unemployable. I became unhireable, really, truly, because I just pictured so much of me just designing my days. And it didn't even matter at that point how much even money it was. It was just about the freedom of choice. And so what would happen is when I would have tough times, which is a lot, especially in the beginning. Oh my gosh, your highs are very high, your lows are very low. I would go back to what would happen if I don't continue to pursue Isagenix? Like, how am I going to get to this vision if I don't do this? Like, what is the plan? If not this, then what? And that's what kept me in, because I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I will make this happen, because I'm not going to let my life go by and be punching time clocks and never like live the life I want to live. And that was more painful for me. The pain of not, oh, go ahead.
Sarah, did you consider quitting often?
Never. It's just peachy. I mean, everybody just signed up and it was great. And we just created consultants. We had the boom.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm interrupting this broadcast for a sarcasm moment.
Oh man, no one ever returned their products. I mean, it was just great. Everyone wants to get to executive. It's just crazy.
So you thought about it a lot then?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, even after I remember like a year in, even, I was like, I'm not growing as fast as some of these other people. Cause my mentor had other people come in and like, they were just like, boom. I feel like they like blinked and their business they just went to 3-star. And I was over here at like 9, 10 cycles a week. And I was like, I am working way harder than all these people. And I'm like, what, this is just, and I'm a little competitive. And I'm like, what, like, how is this even happening?
Did you say a little competitive?
A little, like a little. And so I was just like, how is this even happening? I don't get it. And so, I got mad, and I was like, maybe this doesn't work for me. But then I would go back and I actually did this. I picked up some hours at a gym. I helped a friend at the front desk. And as I commuted to work, and I was still obviously doing Isagenix, I was like, I am taking all this time to drive here, to clock in, to be here, when I could have just sold a value pack, when I could have just signed someone up and created a residual income. Instead, like, what is this going to do? Like, what is it like? And I started to I had that pain of like driving there on the interstate, I'll never forget. And I was like, I could literally be working my business and just going for no right now. I could just contact more people instead of do this. Yeah. And that pain point for me was, because it was a little bit of reality of like, you're going to have to work a normal job if you don't get this thing going. And that changed everything.
Let's talk about that again. A new person, if we're going to do an exercise with the why, and I know the perfectionist in you, by the way, perfectionism is just another form of procrastination, just in case you're wondering. So if you're, I can't really figure out a why, can you give us an exercise or give us some kind of work to do around the why? How does someone start? What's something we can give someone to actually sit down and maybe write again right now that will allow them to at least discover, even if it's the initial why? Because how many times has your why twisted and changed and turned over 10 years?
Hundreds,
exactly. So it's not like the why of all whys, but what you find is as you've grown more, the why gets bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah, it expands. Yeah. No, this is really good. Okay, so everybody stop, collaborate, and listen. Okay, no, sorry. Okay, so stop what you're doing and write this down, or even in the notes section of your cell phone. Why are you doing Isagenix? Like, just like a simple question. Ask yourself, why am I listening to this 6-week program? Why am I getting on team calls? Why am I taking the products? Why am I pursuing the business? Why? Just literally ask yourself that question and write it down. And maybe like we already said, maybe it is to, learn a new way to do business. Okay. But hold on. Why do you want to learn a new way to do business? Because the old ways aren't working? Because you feel bored? So you take the surface level thing of the why, not that any of your whys are surface level, but you take it and you dig a little bit deeper with it. Okay. So again, if you want to learn a new way to do business, okay, why? Is your current way that you're doing sales, is it not working? Do you feel like you're trading time for money? And really go down all the layers of why you'd want to do something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I want to take you back. I think I remember the last time you and I chatted, your original why, wasn't it like $500 a month or something? I can't remember exactly what it was. What was your original why?
Yeah, I mean, basically was just to pay rent, and
Okay.
yeah.
But and so it was, but it because then if I go back to Kathy's comment, if she was sitting with us right now, your why has to be bigger than the obstacles you're going to face, and some of the obstacles you're going to face coming up are rejection for people saying no, and you're going to make it mean something it doesn't mean. Everyone does it, right? There's the fear of rejection is so massive. But that why and the accountability of why, what I love is, when I really know someone's why, and you just talked about it. If I knew your why and you're saying, well, my first why was to pay this rent, to have a higher level of freedom or choice, right? But when I want to sort of coach with you and remind you of why, because there's going to be moments that each one of you listening right now are going to think about quitting. You just heard, us talk about that a second ago. But can you talk a little bit about that, about how the accountability of using a why versus just, we're going to write it down, but how do I hold myself accountable when the obstacle comes around these whys?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of goes back to having a vision and a vision board to remind you of the things that you're striving for and the why behind it. But I love to share it with a few people. A mentor is massive. One of my mentors texted me today and he said, "Hey, it's been a really long time, but I want you to truly know that I'm so proud of you because you just keep pushing forward, and that's what you told me you were going to do." And I was like, whoa, like blew my mind that he texted me that, but he is a bit of an accountability partner for me. And so I even look to Isagenix, if you went up to Kathy Coover at an event and you tell her you're going to do something, that's massive accountability. If you tell even your family, that accountability is huge. But I think it's just so important that you attach some pain points to your why, that so you actually follow through. And it starts really with a mindset. And in this company, in this business, like, you have to treat it like a business. And when you get real with yourself, and I always talk to the team, and when I'm doing individual talks, I'm like, permission to be real with you. They're like, of course. Okay. I'm like, okay, so you say you want 40 cycles a week, 6 figures a year. Okay. That's a 3-star in our company. You say that's what you want. Okay. You're telling me why you want it. You want to be your own boss and all the things that go around that. But then, you're not joining team calls. You haven't enrolled anybody all month. Like, permission to be real. Your why and vision is beautiful, but your actions suck. And like, they're not gonna like Sister Sally Sue.
Wait. I just want to give everyone a moment to actually make that real, because I bet you a lot of you listening right now, you may have already gotten the vision and the why, right? Or you're teaching people how, and your actions suck. Carry on.
Yeah. And if I'm not real with you, then who will be? I mean, that's the thing. That's why, I mean, I've gotten to where I am in life is because I know my why. I'm hungry, I'm driven, I'm coachable, but I also put people in my path that will push me to be greater than what I even know of myself. And so the thing is, I want to like really, really make this clear. I understand you have dreams. I understand you have goals. They're beautiful and they are meaningful to you. But if you don't shift your mindset around, this is a business and I'm going to have to literally reverse engineer my vision, my why, my goals to craft time in, put time in of when I'm actually going to work this business, then all these visions will just be visions.
Yeah.
And that's the massive accountability part, right?
Can I ask you a question? Last little question on the why. If somebody's in that situation where they're in, because every single person who's listening, you have the same compensation plan, you have the same products, you have the same back office, you have the same opportunity, but some of you are growing into it, like we heard. I mean, that's exactly what you had to do. You grew into this. You weren't there in the beginning. You had a very limited mindset. You had a very limited income. You were sleeping on the floor, right? You needed money to pay rent. And here you are growing in 10 years later, looking at this, and you just got off the news, and your message is now resonating around the world. But that was a real journey. If somebody's in a situation where they have the why, they have the vision, but they're not doing the do, what do you recommend? Do they go back and they find a deeper why? Do they go and do some more work there? Or what happens? What's getting in the way? They got that first bit done and now they're still not doing much, because every time they start to do it, they feel that uncomfortable feeling like we talked about earlier, and they recede back to what they've always been doing, and they're getting the same freaking results they were.
I know.
Right? Talk about that. What do I do if I'm stuck?
Yeah. There is so many little elements that could be attributing to you being stuck or in a slump. I love to look at different areas. Are you hanging out with people that don't support your goals? Like, are you in the friend group where all they do is complain and moan about their spouses and they don't take action or responsibility? Because that I have seen so many great people, David, that have massive potential, dreams, all of the things, and they go get in the wrong friend group. It's like I can just see the roller coaster start to happen. And it's like, poof, they're gone. They get comfortable again. And so I like to look at all those different areas of, what's going on with you for real, and really dive deeper back into your why and reevaluate that and ask yourself, and maybe this time, this call, this training is a time for you to really reevaluate why you do what you do. And if it's not moving the needle for you, then we got to find something that moves the needle. And only you can really ask yourself that. I'm unfortunately, like, we can't sit here and tell you that, but you have to ask yourself that and get reinvigorated around it. And, I also like to look at all the different areas of why you could be in a slump. Are you not taking care of yourself? Are you not working out? Have you, been in a complaining cycle, victim cycle? Do you need to turn it back to gratitude, to love, to faith? How is your day-to-day life? Because oftentimes when I can find patterns with people, if they're not building the business, if they're not living a healthy life, they have had some bad habits creep in. And during the time that we're recording this, it's been a crazy year, and a lot of people are figuring out a new normal. And a lot of people that I know, even David, that are wildly successful, they've been in their own funks and they've had to reevaluate the way they do everything. They've had to come out of it. And so I want to give you some grace there for a hot second, but I also want to get you to understand, you're not a tree, you got to move. And now we have to really evaluate, what are you doing day to day? And how can you set yourself up for success? For example, if you really struggle working from home and your dog bothers you, your kids bother you, could you go to a WeWork? Could you go to an office space? Could you go to a coffee shop? Could you find a different place to work, right? So it's kind of going, what are the things that are distracting me? And what do I got to do to make a change? Because what I'm currently doing is not working. A woman I met, a mentor, literally just texted me. And she said, Emily, you were right. I'm at the BNI group. They don't have anyone selling supplements. They don't have anyone doing network marketing. She goes, I'm signing up. I already got a one-on-one set up with a guy for next week. So that was a shift. She was struggling to find prospects, and I suggested to her to start networking. She got up early this morning, and now she's making that shift. And so I would give you so many examples, but a lot of it comes back to you. We always talk about this, David. It's so hard to lead others if we're not leading ourselves. And that's why you got to get your frequency up and do what it's required to go out there and make that shift.
And I think that the 10-year journey, I know you teach on this, I teach on this, that 1% better, I know it's part of your brand now.
Yeah.
But that's sort of just that little tiny daily improvement. It's not like we have to, do these massive changes, but when we're doing these incremental tiny changes compounded over time, it's remarkable what can happen. Because when I look back over my journey the last 20 years, right, nothing happened overnight. It was just those
Oh, it
tiny
didn't?
increments.
Did it happen overnight? I mean, come on. I thought you just became great. Like, whew.
Yeah, I just woke up, boom, and it all changed, right? Let's go into this last part, the story. We know it's, I'm going to set it up. Let's get real for a second. And I always say this. So if you're listening and this upsets you a little bit, I'm okay with that. So you get okay with that, right?
Yeah.
But no one cares about your story. They only care about their own story. And so one of the things that as we explore this together, Emily, I just want to sort of look at that is how can someone, what should we do to create a story? And then how do we share our story elegantly? And you already talked about it in the early part of the show when we talked about the quality of listening. You said that that's one of the things you really had to learn was not only just to listen, but to really hear. And I always love active listening, to be actively aware and actively but I just want to start that off, and no one really cares because some people get trapped in their old story, the pity, and the only reason they share their story is because they want people to sort of, feel for them. Yet the story we're talking about is sharing a story that's really about the other person versus ourselves. We're sharing a story to help someone. Can you just talk about the philosophy of why storytelling is so important, but not telling the story about us, it's telling a story for someone else? What's the distinction?
It's absolutely everything. You may have heard this, like stories sell, facts tell. Stories are relatable. People can see themselves in your story, or they know somebody that they can, see in your story. So it's so wildly important to start becoming a storyteller if you're already not. I mean, it's all I do. How many stories did I just tell you about people that I've been mentoring the past 48 hours? I just told you a bunch of stories, right? That's all I ever do. I'm constantly sharing stories. And especially when I'm trying to introduce Isagenix to someone, listen, it's great that I have this life, but what people really want to know is what's in it for me. And at the end of the day, like, I want to change someone else's life. I want them to see what they cannot see right now. I want to have them to have that vision, that hope. And so what I love to do is to connect with others and to share a story in my connection point when I find it's the right time to obviously bring that up in our connection. I can share, you remind me, of a woman on my team. This is just a prime example. I met a woman in Malibu at our women's workout, and she's been struggling with weight loss. She's going through menopause. And I said, her name's Janine. I said, Janine, you actually remind me of a woman on my team who had a similar situation. She, tried just about every diet under the sun, and she started my program, and she's feeling so much better, and she was able to budge that weight off. It may or may not be for you, but I would love to share it, because it's really worked for her, and I've seen her progress. It's a story, It's just, it's like you're basically just showing people and giving people examples of what could be possible. So then she's going, oh, what is it? Let me try it. She actually did. She texted me. She watched a video. This is like a real scenario.
So hold on. So your story, and then you sent a video. Is that right?
Yeah, I had her watch our presentation that we had last night, our opportunity presentation.
Right.
But I want to say something. So how old am I? I'm 33. Okay. This woman is like, I don't even know, in her 50s or something. And you might think, like, who's going to relate to me? And that's a limiting belief I had in the beginning, being 23, broke, no college, whatever, not successful. I didn't deem myself to be successful. I had that limiting belief initially of, like, who's going to listen to me sit and talk about wealth and residual income? I mean, I really had that limiting belief. And so when I learned storytelling, I was like, wow, I can just borrow Hillary Courtney's story, one of my, mentors. I can just borrow her story, Mama 5 living outside of Kansas City, this is what she was able to do. And I started to really listen to other people's stories. every element of them, big, small, all the way around. So then when I meet someone that I can see, okay, they kind of relate, I can add that in. The personal trainer that just joined our team, I said, Mike, we have so many trainers in this company that have been able to double their income. Not only that, they've been able to service their clients with amazing nutrition and create more freedom that you're looking for. You're looking to work those two days a week. So many people I've worked with in this company, they added in this element and it changed the game for their business. Would you be open? Would you be open to taking a look at it? And again, it's not about 33-year-old me having this life, doing all these things. It's about Mike being a personal trainer and what he could do with this. It's about the woman at the workout with the menopause. Like, that's the art of connection, relatability. And I feel like it's such a missing component, and it's why you're maybe not getting those connections.
Yeah. Well, I think that one thing you said here, which I love, just the one thing I love, the rest, I don't know. No, but the idea is that, there's 600,000 associates, let's say, which means there's 600,000 stories. We don't have to know them all, but, if I'm talking, like you said, if I'm talking to a woman with menopause, A, I'm not a woman, and B, I'm not in menopause. But the idea is that I can share stories. I could share anyone's story. So it's like I have a plethora, but that means by being a part of a community like this, by getting onto calls, by watching videos, by listening to stories in the back office, I could start to really not only listen and hear, but identify with a story that I can bring to somebody else. So when I'm talking to anybody, I can find any type of story that I can bring to them and share that story, or I could use my own story. I mean, we could do both, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you get personal, like, before I found these products, before I found this company, maybe it's more of you bump into a friend and they're feeling blue, they're feeling lonely, which is a lot of people right now. You could say, and maybe you just joined us 3 months ago. Welcome, by the way, if that's you. But you could say, you know what, Sally, I can completely relate. I was feeling very lost when all this started. I didn't know what to do, very lonely. And then I found a community through my nutrition company, and it's really given me hope for the future, education, and the tools to really get better as a person. It may or may not be for you, but I would love to welcome you into our community. I'm just really listening to you right now and listening to how lonely you feel. I can relate.
Sure. And what you're saying there, which I love, is you've got this, product story, you've got the lifestyle story, you've got the money story, you've got the business story, you've got the vision story. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to share your stories. If I was to put you on the spot and I was to say to you, if we went back to your product story or your life story, let's say that, you're identified 23, you were at the time, and you were working as a massage therapist. What was going on in your health? I mean, because as a massage therapist, because I know from past relationships who I dated a massage therapist, how hard it was on her body and how she was sore and how it was like doing a full body workout all day long, and her joints and her body and how tired she was, and how really, if you care about massage therapy, how focused you have to be for all those hours. So you're mentally exhausted. Do you remember some of the things that you were feeling physically? If we just talk about product story right now, what were some of the things you were feeling physically back then?
Yeah. So before Isagenix, I was feeling completely drained. I had my wrists. Oh my gosh, my wrists were hurting. I just felt like food. I had issues with food, and I would try to eat super clean, and I would have Tupperware in my car, like flying out of my car of all the food I prepped. And I did well for a couple of days, and then I would binge eat due to stress. And, so that's really where I was at before I could tell you guys all about it forever, but but honestly, I felt, somebody in their 20s should have so much energy. I had little to no energy. I drank about a pot of coffee a day.
Awesome. And so when you're teaching someone, because as you've advanced and you have the confidence and you have the ability to pull any story out, if I was to ask you about money, if I was to ask you, you can go on any story and you can relate it. And I think the word is relatability. How do
Right.
you relate a story to somebody? But, you know, we have a template. We have a story template. It's not scripted. It's a story template. When you're starting out and you're kind of looking for the how-tos, how important is, because we're going to actually include a template with this. We're going to make sure people get access to it and go in the back office and they can find a template. But how important are templates in the beginning when you're sort of building the muscle? You don't have the naturalness you do where you can just pull any story and make it work.
Yeah, it's everything, you guys. Like, follow the template, write it out. I mean, I remember the first time I was asked to share my story on a call. I was like, oh my gosh, my story. Like, how do I even, I'm like, this is good. Do you guys got time? We got 20 minutes? They're like, no, we want you to share for 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes max. And I was like, how do I get that down? And even today, when I'm out here in Isagenix land, I'm with all of you. I'm like, hey, what's your story? And I'm like, okay, we don't have time for like an entire movie here. Like, so you got to wrap it up. And so I love the template for sure, because it really gives you a template of what to write. You know, before Isagenix, I was feeling sluggish. I was working all day as a massage therapist, as a nanny, had little to no energy. I drank about a pot of coffee a day. And I was introduced to this program by my friend Holly. I watched her. She released 90 pounds on the program. And then I decided to give it a go. I trusted her. And it was day 4 for me on the program. I started to wake up before my alarm clock. I felt better. My clothes felt better. And I just felt so compelled to share this gift with the world. So that's what I'm doing now. And so again, it's like there's 4 areas of it. You know, before I felt, who introduced you, now how you feel, and then as a result, what are you doing with it? And that flow, David, woo, you can just roll with it. And whatever you want to lead with, you know, if you want to lead with the business, if you want to lead with the products, you'll get really good at it. And that can be your pitch, if you will.
So if we wanted them to write out their story right now, but before we do, I'm going to test you again, because you just shared a product story using Holly, but let's say you're talking to Mike, who's the personal trainer that you signed up today, and here's his dream. And remember, you've already found out about him. You know what his dream is, so you know your story can fit his dream. But he loves to be a personal trainer, but he just really, his dream would be not to do it from 4 o'clock in the morning, getting up, and till 8 o'clock at night, and having no life.
Right.
And he wants to do it with only clients that he really wants to work with. So you know that he wants to work with only people he really loves to work with. You know that he wants to have freedom in his week where, you know, he wants to be able to select when he works and how he works. And you know that he wants to build an online something where he's able to create residual income or freedom. Yeah. So if I was to ask you to share your story again for Mike, because this is what's the beauty of the template, is you don't have one story, you have multiple stories, or you could share somebody else's story. How would you share your story if you were talking to Mike?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So knowing all that stuff, I would just be like, you know, Mike, I work with a gentleman named Jared, and before he started with my company, he was just like you, working all these hours, and he had this burning desire to have more time. So we got him in on the program. He started taking our products, started working the business a couple hours a day. And now as a result, he's able to full-time pursue his desires and goals as an actor, and or whatever it might be. But I would relate it back to, you know, Mike, like being a male, wanting more, knowing he wants to cut down his hours. So I might say something like that. Or I might just say something, Mike, I have people, I might be as casual as this, because sometimes I feel like we go into like this, like sales, different tonality mode, even though like Mike might be your buddy, like your homie, and you shouldn't talk to him like, if he's like your good friend, right? So I might be like, Mike, listen, I have so many people I work with on my team that are like you. They're in the personal training world. They wanted to do what you do. Okay. They wanted to train those clients that they loved, but they also wanted to, build wealth. They wanted to leverage their time. They got into this. They started with the program, they started with the products, and now they're able to 10x their business because they're doing it virtually. I want to show you this if you're open.
Awesome. Yeah. And what I love about that, that's that realness, in the sales profession. You're really just trying to solve a problem. Mike has a problem that he loves his profession, but he wants to be able to make more money like you. You could only make $28,000 a year doing what you were doing, but he wanted to help more people, but he also wanted to have freedom. And what you can do is you can talk to him like a human being. So before we wrap this up, which we're going to do in a minute here, can you just sort of go through the steps of the template, sort of like, what are those steps? So someone's sitting at home right now, they're going to work on their story, and you sort of started that beautifully. I used to be a massage therapist, I was. Just sort of goes through those basic tenets of the template so someone can start to realize, oh, my story is just my story, and I can just put it in sequential format that will allow me to not do like you talked about, the 25-minute version, but to be able to, in a minute or 30 seconds or 2 minutes, be able to share a really great story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really look at before Isagenix. That's where it needs to start. So before Isagenix. And what I want you to do is have, 2 sections of your piece of paper. So let's have a product dominant story and then a business. And I know some of you are going, oh, I don't know about the business. No, I want you to have the business. Okay. There's a reason you're doing the business. Don't just only talk about products. So have both stories. Okay. Before Isagenix, and then I was introduced, because that's going to tie in a story. And then as a result. Okay.
Yeah, and the pain before Isagenix, and that's the pain part, right? Because you want to be able to share or identify the pain. So, for example, if you were talking to Mike, before Isagenix, let's say if it was, I was a massage therapist. I was stuck in a room for, 6 to 8 hours a day. I was only able to work with 6 clients. I was exhausted. I was in a dark room. My wrists hurt. I was living on coffee. So that pain point is where we can relate to other people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. And it humanizes you, right? It absolutely humanizes. And when we open up to other people about our struggles, it's like it allows other people to do the same, and it builds trust. I remember for the longest time, David, I was like, I don't want to admit that I had food issues. Like, who wants to admit that? And it was my ego was like, I don't want to tell anybody that. And then when I started to craft my story, I, would throw it in there because it's real. I had issues with food. And so before Isagenix, I really struggled maintaining a healthy relationship with food. And when I started to add in that pain point, people started to open up to me, and they're like, me too. I mean, so many people can relate to stress eating, right? And so it just opens everything up. So again, just allow yourself to go there. We're not going into like a sob story, but just a little bit touching on that is major.
Yeah. Well, how great was this? I'm so thankful. Just any last words? Again, those next week is week 2. And what I'm excited about, next week we're going to look at, belief, finding people, inviting people. So those skill sets, those specific skill sets that's coming next week. But Emily, I just want you to tie this in a bow. What's your sort of final words? And especially I want you to think about that new mind. You know what you were like 10 years ago, and that new person that potentially in this next 7 days to the next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be challenged with that idea of maybe thinking about quitting, about taking a different path, because this sometimes seems so hard, or that it seems so challenging, or it pushes someone so far outside their comfort zone in the beginning that they just sort of like their brain tricks them and pushes them back in. And I love what you started with. You said, if not this, then what? But what's your final words? How do you want to wrap this one in a bow for us?
Yeah. Oh, so good. I just first want to acknowledge you for being here and for doing something different than the rest of society and going for it. That's massive. So pat yourself on the back for that. I want to acknowledge you for that. But I really want you to know that, what David is training here in the next 6 weeks, this is skills that when you learn them, this business becomes so much easier when you learn to master the skills. Then you'll be able to master the mundane of this business that in a result can allow you to live the life of your dreams, whatever that looks like for you. And so really, I want you to look at, what we just covered. We covered vision. We talked to you about how to have a vision board and how to create that and what that looks like day to day. Okay, so that's a massive homework assignment. We talked about your why. Okay, that's another massive homework assignment. And then we talked about your story, crafting your story. These three things are the foundation of your business. Okay, so before you go on and go start to listen and do all these other things, do these things. I promise you, you are going to have so much more ease in your business when you master storytelling, when you have a vision, when you're locked in on your why. And when you have these things as you're on your tool belt, I like to call it, you've got your stories, you're able to whip out, you're going to be able to build this business in the pockets of your crazy busy life. And you're going to be able to move forward. But the thing is this, if you don't do those things, if you don't lock in on your why, if you don't tell people what you're doing, it's never going to happen. And that would be a shame. That would be a shame, because the world needs you and your message and your smile and your vibrancy, and they need it. And they need it now more than ever. You're like the vessel that's going to change someone else's life. And so know that you have that power within you. You absolutely do. It's up to you, though, to go to work on it and to create that change that you so desire to see. So thank you, David, and thank you, everyone. I just love you, and I'm excited for the next 6 weeks.
And Emily, I want to thank that 23-year-old laying on her mattress, earning $28,000 a year, who said yes, and who thought about quitting many times, who went through the peaks and the valleys and the plateaus of this build, and is sitting here today, 10 years later, as a 7-figure-a-year income earner who is impacting lives both in our community, outside our community, and really just offers from your heart such clarity, such passion, such conviction and faith. You have this really deep core of spirituality with heart and passion. You're a tiger. And I'm so proud of you. I just feel like, you are just a gift to the planet, and thank you. And I love you.
I love you. Thank you.
Well, I had to sit down after that one. I was standing up the whole time. Again, I want to remind you the resources, the story template, and that story template, you sort of have an idea how she uses it, how she's able to use the stories of other people, her own story, how she's able to adapt it, how she's become an incredible listener. But that story template is your background, what you didn't like about your background, how network marketing and Isagenix came to the rescue, and the results. And sort of the, how you feel about the future, the vision of the future. All right. You see how much time we spent on that vision. I think it's such an essential part. I mean, the life I lead today at one point was, in a book, cut out of magazines and stuck down on a magazine. And now I'm living it as I'm sitting here looking out on the view where I live. That vision that I got clear on all those years ago is now the reality of how I live. So again, go back and do the work she asked you to do, the questions that she asked you to answer. The same with the why. It's such that complexity of the why. The why being those, the immediate kind of obstacle. And that's what Kathy, I kept repeating about Kathy, said the why has to be bigger than the obstacle you're facing. So, for some of you, it's just, again, like I said, it's just a financial thing that you want to overcome. I know I was talking to a lady yesterday, and it was just that her husband just lost her job, and she's the sole provider for a family of 3, and she's pregnant, right, with a 4th. And so her why is massive right now, and she is not going to allow herself to fail. So get that why clear. Do the homework, your vision, your why, and your story. And we're going to see you next week. We're going to be working on who do you know. We are going to be digging into the beliefs week after week after week about finding people and about inviting people. Again, those really important skill sets that we need to develop. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for staying here for this whole time. I know it was long, but it's worth it. If it's worth doing, it's worth learning, and it's worth practicing. So good luck, and I'll definitely see you next week. And thank you, and we'll see you on the other side.